My name's Sam Paul. I'm a behavioural scientist. Now, if you don't know what a behavioural scientist is, you're not alone. We do work which is with cognitive and social and behavioural psychology to understand human behaviour. And actually about 10 years ago, I came into this industry and realised that actually there was lots of things that I didn't even understand about my own human behaviour. And one of those was I wanted to go out and run, I wanted to eat healthy, but there was lots of things in my environment that would make me succumb to temptation. So I tried to understand what it was that I needed to do to overcome some of those components. And behavioural science as an evidence-based practice gives us lots of tools to understand that. As a starting point, there's lots of different biases which can actually impede us from carrying out particular behaviours. And importantly, there's the intention-action gap. So the intention-action gap is the gap between what you intend to do and the actions that you carry out. So that gap between intentions and what people are telling us and their actions. And we did some research recently which demonstrated that there was an intention-action gap in influenza vaccinations. And we found actually that 73% of adult Australians in March 2021 said that they would get vaccinated. This dropped to 45% by June in 2021. And importantly, when we look at the actual rates of influenza vaccination rates this year, we saw that there was nowhere near those kind of rates. So people were saying they were going to do things, but that did not translate into actual behaviours. And there's some real good reasons why that might be the case. And there's obviously the context of COVID and many other aspects which would have got in the way of people carrying out those particular behaviours. And that comes back to quite often people believe there's a kind of trajectory of behaviour, and this is what is going to be an easy pathway to reach their outcome of behaviour. But in reality, our motivation waxes and wanes. But there's two core fundamental elements which will help us to improve the rates and ultimately reduce that intention-action gap. One is to increase levels of motivation, and the second is to reduce the levels of friction. A really good example about this is think about winning the lottery. So if I said, congratulations, you've won $1 million, but here's all the documentation that you need to fill out. And maybe you need to get a lawyer involved in making that claim for the $1 million. It's hard work, but you would probably do it. $1 million is highly lucrative. But change the context. And if you say you've won $10, you're far less likely to go through that documentation and make that claim. So the motivation has entirely changed between the $1 million and $10. However, if you change the context slightly and you reduce those documents to a single click, you actually find you're reducing the friction points, and the likelihood that you're going to carry out that behaviour for $10 is increased. So although the motivation remains low at $10, the friction points of that documentation has been reduced as well. So what we want to do when it comes to vaccinations and influenza vaccinations is focus very much on reducing friction points and maximising motivation. So how do we actually do that? Well, I'm going to start with talking about friction points and then moving on to motivation.